Hiya guys, it's Sara. I'm going to read a story today by the Mr Mem, and it is called Mr Tickle. So, Mr Tickle by Roger Hargreaves. It was a warm and sunny morning. In his small house at the end of the wood, Mr Tickle was asleep. You didn't know there was such a thing as a tickle, did you? Well, there is. Tickles are small and round, and they have arms that stretch and stretch and stretch. Extraordinary long arms. See his house? Oh, very nice looking house. Mr. Tickle was fast asleep. He was having a dream. It must have been a very funny dream because it made him laugh out loud. And that woke him up. He sat up in bed and stretched his extraordinary long arms and yawned. Oh, an enormous yawn. Mr. Tickle felt hungry. So what do you think he did? See Mr. Tickle in bed? He reached out one of his extraordinary long arms, opened the bedroom door, reached down the stairs, opened the kitchen door, reached into the kitchen cupboard, opened a tin of biscuits, took out a biscuit, brought it all the way back upstairs and through the bedroom door and back to Mr. Tickle in bed. Oh, that's a very long arm. I don't think my arms reach that far. As you can see, it's very useful having long arms, and definitely as long as Mr. Tickle's. Mr. Tickle munched his biscuits. Tasty biscuits. He looked out of his window. Today looks very much like a tickling day. He thought to himself, oh, and see him pinching a biscuit from his cupboard. So later that morning, after Mr. Tickle had made his bed and cooked his breakfast, he set off through the woods. He walked along. He kept his eyes very wide open, looking for somebody to tickle. Looking for anybody to tickle. Ooh, look, he's keeping his arms out, trying to find somebody to tickle. Ooh, could be one of you lot. Eventually, Mr. Tickle came to a school. Oh, I wonder if it's Hillcoffer? There was nobody about. Oh. So, reaching up his extraordinary long arms to a high window ledge, Mr. Tickle pulled himself up and peeped through the open window. You see his long arms stretching up to the window. Inside, he could see a classroom. I wonder if it was your classroom. There were children sitting at their desks and a teacher writing on the blackboard. Ooh, is it tickle? Do you think he's going to tickle him? Mr. Tickle waited a minute and then reached in through the window. Mr. Tickle's extraordinary long arms went right up to the teacher. Paused, and then tickled. The teacher jumped in the air and turned round very quickly to see who it was. But there was no one there. Look. Mr. Tickle grinned with a mischievous grin. He waited another minute and then tickled the teacher again. This time he kept on tickling until the teacher was laughing out loud and saying, "Stop it! Stop it!" over and over again. All the children were laughing too at such a funny sight. There was a terrible pandemonium. Ooh, that's a big word, pandemonium. Eventually, Mr. Tickle thought he'd had had enough fun. So he gave the teacher one more tickle for luck. Then, very quickly, brought his arms back through the window and back down to himself. Chuckling to himself, he jumped down from the window, leaving the poor teacher to explain what it was all about, which of course he couldn't. Then Mr Tickle went to town. Oh, he's on his way to town. Can you see it? And what a day Mr Tickle had. He tickled the policeman on traffic duty at the crossroads in the middle of town. He caused an enormous traffic jam. Oops. Tickling the policeman. Not a good idea. He tickled the greengrocer just as he was piling apples neatly in his shop window. The greengrocer fell over backwards and the apples rolled all over the shop. Oh, what a mess. At the railway station, the guard was about to wave his flag for the train to leave. As he lifted his arms in the air, Mr Tickle tickled him. And every time he tried to wave his flag, Mr Tickle tickled him, until the train was 10 minutes late, leaving the station, and all the passengers were furious. Oh dear, I wouldn't want to be him. That day, Mr Tickle tickled everybody. He tickled the doctor. He tickled the butcher. Oh, he's tickling a businessman there as well. He even tickled old Mr Stamp, the postman, who dropped all his letters into a puddle. Oh dear. Mr Postman. Then Mr Tickle went home, sitting in his armchair in his small house at the other side of the wood. He laughed and he laughed every time he thought about all the people he had tickled. Looks very cosy in his armchair. So, if you are in any way ticklish, beware of Mr Tickle and those extraordinary long arms. Just think, perhaps he's somewhere about at this very moment while I'm reading this book. Ooh, these very long arms. Perhaps that extraordinary long arm of his is already creeping up into the door of his room. Perhaps it's opening the door now and coming into the room. Perhaps before you know it, what is happening? You will be well and truly tickled. Mr Tickle. Oh, I hope he doesn't find me. I'm ticklish. Are you guys ticklish? I see you again for another book.